Good morning, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here again this year. I've yet to miss one of these. I look forward to it every year. This morning, I have my Ag Issues team with me, and yes, they are not in official dress, but they are going to role play their position with our issue. And so you'll get to see them here in just a second, but let me introduce them. We got Cole Baker, Noah Cross, Aaron Rankin, Alicia Clark, and Natalie Nowotny. Now, before we get started, I'd like to make a little note here that Aaron, there in the middle, she had to come on here in the last week or so. One of our members had to move to a different district, and we were very saddened and heartbroken by that, but that's the way things are today. So Aaron, who had been our computer technician, was familiar with the program and how it went, so I coerced her, I guess you would say, into taking Willow's place. And so she is probably going to read from her script, and I said that's fine, because like I said, we just had to do this in the last week or 10 days, and so that will make her feel a little bit more comfortable. Couple other things I want to say while I'm up here, and I know you guys are on a time schedule. I appreciate all the accolades that I receive and my chapter receives from the community and surrounding areas. But I also want to say that you also have two other programs here in Logan County, FFA programs, that are just right up there at the top. Ralph Allen, I know I saw Ralph here. There he is. Ralph Allen from Mount Pulaski. He has his folks here today and does an excellent job over at Mount Pulaski. Jacob Hunter. Is Jacob here? Okay, but Jacob Hunter is the new teacher at Lincoln High School, and he is getting his feet wet as we speak, doing a great job over there with the program. He will bring it along, I'm sure, just as I and Ralph have done with our programs as well. So again, I appreciate the thanks and that we receive. As Ralph and I know, it takes a lot of hard work, a lot of time, a lot of devotion, and sometimes a lot of stupidity, but you know, we do what we do, and we love what we do. So without that, I'm going to have Aaron come up, and we've got a PowerPoint that goes along with it. I hope that you'll be able to hear them, because normally at the competition they do not speak in front of a microphone. Normally they are in just a regular classroom doing this in front of the judges. This will be an issue that might be to your liking here on diesel emission regulation. So anyway, Aaron, you want to come up and get started? And the rest of you, why don't you come over here, and that way you'll be ready when your time comes.
All right, let's get this meeting started. Most of you know me. I'm Aaron Rankin, co-owner of Hartsburg-Emden. My customers have had some concerns about the effects of new diesel emissions regulations on farm equipment. So, I've invited a couple experts to speak with all of you on this subject. Our first guest is from the Environmental Protection Agency. Miss Natalie Nowotny is going to tell us how Tier 4 engines are beneficial to the environment.
Good morning. I am Natalie Nowotny. I am from the federal government, and I'm here to help you. Today, I'll be representing the EPA and clearing up the air about diesel emissions regulations. Here's some facts for you to ponder. Diesel exhaust is 100 times more toxic than gasoline exhaust. Also, diesel exhaust contributes 20 to 30% of all air pollution. Because of the dangerous exhaust that diesel engines produce, diesel emissions are a prime source of air pollution. The most lethal of these substances are nitrogen oxides, particulate matter, and air toxics. These pollutants contribute to smog and are a massive health concern, especially to children and the elderly. Diesel exhaust contributes to 3,000 hospital admissions for cardiovascular and respiratory-related diseases and cause 2,400 excess deaths annually. $19 billion is spent on health care for people ill with diesel emissions-related diseases. Also, one of the most prominent harmful effects of diesel exhaust is increased asthma symptoms, including more frequent flare-ups. Other serious risks are heart and lung-related diseases, fertility problems, birth defects, and developmental delays in children. It is obvious why regulations on diesel emissions are needed. To solve these problems, the EPA has issued a nationwide comprehensive program with new emissions regulations. In 1970, the Clean Air Act was passed by the United States Congress and signed into law by President Richard Nixon. It was then further amended in later years, the last of which was 1990. The Clean Air Act requires the EPA to develop regulations to protect the public from airborne pollutants. As a part of these regulations, engine manufacturers will have to produce new engines with advanced emission control technologies. These will reduce diesel emissions by more than 99%. As a part of the Clean Air Act, the EPA has developed a tiered system to gradually give the industry time to come in compliance with the ultimate end goal: air cleaner when it leaves the engine than when it enters it. Tier 1 set higher emission standards for normal everyday cars, including SUVs and minivans. The end compliance date for Tier 1 was 1996. In Tier 2, the major item that was regulated was the amount of sulfur allowed in gasoline and diesel fuel. The end compliance date for Tier 2 was 2002. Tier 3 established new standards for vehicles and their fuel. Tier 3 set even stricter standards for gasoline and motor emissions than the previous tiers. The end compliance date for Tier 3 was 2006. Tier 4 is the final phase in the EPA's response to the Clean Air Act. The major item is that it reduces particulate matter emissions from the 2004 level of 3,000 parts per million to 15 parts per million, thus reducing diesel emissions by 99%. There are two end dates for this final phase. Tier 4A's end compliance date was 2011. Tier 4B's end compliance date is 2014. In conclusion, once the standards of Tier 4 have been met, it will provide a wide range of health benefits. The amount of nitrogen oxides and particulate matter in the air will be substantially less, which, by 2030, will annually prevent about 8,000 premature deaths, 12,000 hospitalizations, 15,000 heart attacks, 280,000 cases of respiratory problems in children, and 5.8 million days of restricted adult activity due to respiratory symptoms. And in dollars, the health benefits would add up to $80 billion, heavily outweighing the costs of engine and fuel requirements at a measly $2 billion. The benefit-to-cost ratio is 40 to 1. The potential success of this system is impossible to ignore. Thank you for listening. I am certain this has justified these new regulations, and I urge you to keep them in mind. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Nowotny. Our next guest is an engineer. Mr. Noah Cross is going to explain to us more about how Tier 4 engines work.
Thank you. As Ms. Rankin said, my name is Noah Cross, and I have been an engineer with the University of Illinois for many years. Most recently, I have been involved in the design of engines that meet new emissions requirements. I would like to start by giving you a quick refresher on engines prior to emissions regulations. In a typical four-stroke cycle, air is compressed inside the cylinder, raising the temperature of the air enough to ignite the diesel fuel that has been injected into the cylinder. Once the diesel ignites, the air temperature increases to 1,500 degrees Fahrenheit, and the air expands, pushing the piston down and rotating the crankshaft. These high temperatures allow the nitrogen and oxygen in the air to form new compounds, NO and NO2. These are commonly called NOx. NOx and particulate matter in exhaust are now being regulated. There are currently two methods being used to reduce these harmful emissions. They are EGR and SCR. With the exhaust gas recirculation system, or EGR, after the exhaust stroke, exhaust is recirculated through the EGR valve, which controls the percentage of old exhaust going through the transfer pipe into the EGR cooler, which cools down the exhaust with engine coolant before making its way through another transfer pipe back into the intake manifold, through the 4-stroke cycle, out the exhaust manifold, through the diesel particulate filter, or DPF, and out the exhaust. If you are pulling a low load or working in cold weather, particulate matter will build up in the filter. When the filter becomes plugged, the system will temporarily inject a small amount of diesel fuel into the DPF to burn off excess particulate matter. This is known as a regen cycle. On the other hand, with the SCR system, or selective catalytic reduction system, after the 4-stroke cycle, exhaust passes through the catalytic chamber, where it is sprayed with a mixture of 33% urea and 67% water. After the urea is mixed with the exhaust, the nitrous oxides are broken down into a harmless mixture of water vapor and nitrogen. According to Roger Galt, the technical director of Engines Manufacturers Association, the best way to tell if an engine is compliant is to place a white hanky over the exhaust. If it remains white, then the engine is compliant. Tier 4 engines will be that clean. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cross. I'd now like to open the floor to anyone else that would like to speak.
I have something I'd like to add.
Go ahead, Alicia.
My name is Alicia Clark, and I am the owner of a small trucking company. I have been dealing with these diesel emission regulations since the EGR system was added to trucks in 2004 and when the DPF was added in 2007. The trucking industry is several years ahead in dealing with the new diesel emission regulations that are just now starting to affect the ag industry, you guys. Through the trucking industry, the ag industry can get a look into the future as to what is going to happen with their equipment. The price of new trucks is up substantially because of the added components to the diesel engine. Based on my own experiences of speaking with dealerships, even the price of used pre-EGR and DPF semi-trucks are also up because everybody wants them. They don't want to have to deal with the EGR and DPF systems on the newer trucks. According to FleetNet, the amount of downtime and added costs with truck repairs has been consistent over the last 5 years, with one major exception, of course. Exhaust systems have been making an appearance on the list. Since exhaust systems weren't much of a problem before 2004, one can only assume that this is the result of adding the new emission systems to trucks. The cost to repair DPFs and EGRs are a major problem for most people that have to deal with them. According to Stan Clark of Clark Transportation Incorporated, it can cost anywhere from $3,000 to $10,000 to fix the systems. Not only are downtime and cost issues, fire safety is an issue. In the news, there have been reports of fires caused by DPFs. The DPFs were doing regens, which caused sparks. Just last October, fire officials in Washington state speculated that a fire started by a truck destroyed thousands of acres and more than 100 structures. So much for saving the environment with these things.
So this is what I can look forward to?
Do you have something to add, Cole?
As a matter of fact, I do. I'm getting concerned to what may possibly happen in a field that's ready for harvest if my tractor or combine or maybe my grain truck that has a DPF and has sparks coming out of the exhaust. The results can be devastating. Hey Aaron, still have those pictures I sent you? You guys get a kick out of this. I have a friend who's at a field demonstration and the combine caught on fire. The combine had interim tier 4. See what your regulations and than what you have created? I need to know if these new tractors are efficient enough to get the job done, or should I go out buy a good, used tractor that does not have the new emissions regulations? If these new engines have less power than the older engines, I'm going out to buy an older engine or just keep what I have. You guys keep saying how great these new engines are. Where are the facts? I need facts to convince me to invest money in these new engines. You know, I heard I could be spending a lot of money on these new engines because my maintenance cost goes up, which means if I break down, say in the middle of the field, I have to call the dealership to come out to the field and fix it. So one, I have to pay for the service call, and two, I have to pay for the part that needed to be replaced. My downtime goes up, which means it takes longer to get the job done, and time is money.
We have a 5-year warranty on all our emission systems.
Well, the last time I was in there, you did not mention that. So just this past week, I was traveling down the interstate when I noticed a semi was parked on the side of the road. There was nothing wrong with the truck, nor the trailer. It was just sitting there. After listening to what Alicia just said, I realized what it was doing. It was probably doing a regen.
Or he could have been out of urea. The owner of Napa Auto Parts has gotten phone calls from semi-truck drivers stranded out on the interstate. Why were they stranded? Because their trucks ran out of urea, and in return, their trucks shut down. He has had to personally drive urea out to the trucks on the interstate, which can become very hazardous in itself.
I'm afraid if I buy a new tractor, I have to stop, regen, and waste fuel. I don't want to be the laughingstock of the coffee shop for buying a tractor that doesn't work. So Aaron, what happens after 5 years?
Well, no warranty lasts forever.
Excuse me. I would like to interrupt and make a point here. The EPA does not regulate the diesel engine. We only regulate the exhaust.
I respectfully disagree with you, Ms. Nwatney. You are regulating my engines by making manufacturers redesign the engines to conform to your new regulations.
I'm sorry, but what's the price you're willing to pay for clean air and your health?
We've heard many different opinions today on Tier 4 engines. Ms. Nwatney enlightened us on how dangerous diesel emissions really are to the environment. Diesel exhaust is 100 times more toxic than gasoline exhaust and makes up to 20 to 30% of air pollution. On the other hand, Mr. Cross enlightened us on the two different kinds of engines that meet emissions requirements. Cole Baker is a farmer, and you heard his concerns about Tier 4. Is this new equipment really efficient enough to get harvest done without wasting a lot of time and money? Maintenance cost goes up with these engines. If these tractors break down in the middle of a field, a dealership will need to be called to come fix it. This means paying for a service call and whatever part needs replaced. Alicia Clark shared with us how she believes the agriculture industry is going to follow the trucking industry. Ever since EGRs were introduced in 2004, the amount of downtime and added cost with truck repairs has been consistent over the last 5 years. She also shared her concern about how these engines are a fire safety issue. We've heard many different opinions, so whether you're interested in something that has the newest emissions technology or you prefer to stick with familiar models, give me a call and we'll see what we can do to set you up with a new or used tractor to meet your needs. Thank you for coming.